Yes. Rookie Minicamp is here, ladies and gentlemen. It's May 2nd, and Rookie Camp is underway. A lot of excitement in Philadelphia right now as Howie Roseman appears to have, again, done a really nice job in this 2026 NFL draft. And let me just tell you something, guys. I'm really not somebody who goes too crazy in terms of all the things Howie Roseman has done. Like a typical, or I should say a majority of Eagle fans where, we praise him all the time. But listen, I think he's the best GM in football. I think he's the best at conducting contracts. And since the Jalen Reagor debacle of a pick, he has nailed virtually every NFL draft we have had since then for the Philadelphia Eagles, building depth, getting starting caliber players, navigating and manipulating the draft with trading and all that jazz. He has done a phenomenal job. Now trusting his own scouts, trusting his own analysis, as opposed to letting the coaching staff influence him on NFL draft day. And it seems like this 2026 NFL draft is no different. However, I will not go crazy over saying how he's going to nail every single pick in this draft. We don't know. They haven't put pads on. They haven't played it down in the NFL just yet. Okay, so I am not going to sit here and say this guy's a stud. He nailed it again. This guy's a superstar in the making. No. What I am going to do, since it is rookie minicamp, we're going to talk about these guys, what I like about them, what I don't like about them, how I think they're going to fit in Philadelphia. Because there's some players who I believe are going to take some time to develop, and there's some players who I think can make an immediate start impact right now and give you some good starting quality reps for the 2026 NFL season, especially with the new scheme with Sean Mannion and the whole personnel change that we have made on offense. So it's not going to be your typical glazing of players here, but I wish them all the best. And I really hope they do have a prosperous career in Philadelphia and hope they can make an impact, okay? So, without further ado, let's just get right into it, ladies and gentlemen, shall we? The first guy, lemon pepper stepper, Makai Lemon. When life gives you lemons, the Philadelphia Eagles take Makai. He was the wide receiver out of USC that is here probably to replace A.J. Brown. And that was our first round pick. We traded up in front of Pittsburgh to get him. We all know that story, but I'm not really going to dive into that story. That's just the luck of the draw. That's how the draft goes. You either take the player you like or you don't. So Philadelphia jumped up, traded spots with Dallas to get Makai Lemon. And we all love this pick. I'm not going to say I love this pick just yet, but I do like the player. I think the player is good. I think he's going to have a really good NFL career. And listen, we all know the things that we've heard about him. Really, really good hands. Only had 3 drops out of like 180 targets or something like that at USC. It was a really, really phenomenal display of hands over the past couple of years. A reliable route runner. He's super competitive. And really, really good with the ball in his hands. Tough guy to tackle down. Not that he's necessarily a home run hitter, but you're going to have to work to bring him down. That is one thing about Makai Lemon that I personally like. If you're going to get him in space, he's a tough guy to bring down for DBs, and he's competitive as nails, and he's tough as shit. So a good route runner that we saw at USC, which is helpful for a guy like Jalen Hurts, who I believe needs receivers who can get open at the top of their breaks. Not that he's necessarily a timing guy per se, but it helps when a guy can get open at the top of a route and give your quarterback an area to throw the ball to where he trusts you're going to be there, or at least in the general vicinity, right? And with a guy like Jalen Hurts, who's not necessarily a timing guy, being able to get open at certain points in the route where he says, okay, you know what? In general, I know he's going to be in this pocket. I just have to find a way to get the ball there at some point in the play, and he's going to be there. Makai Lemon can do that. Again, really smart in zone defenses, can find space, and that's also very helpful for a guy like Jalen Hurts, who last year and the year prior struggled to throw in zone defenses. Now, I know that's not the greatest thing to hear about your starting quarterback, but quite frankly, That's what it is for a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not going to be somebody who is a stickler in that sense. If you're going to learn to play the position, you got to develop in certain areas. A couple of years ago, it was against the blitz that Jalen Hurts had struggles with. He's gotten a little bit better at that. We hope he gets a little bit better against zone defenses now. Maybe people think Sean Mannion will help with that. I am not entirely sure, but that's neither here nor there. We'll talk about that, about some of the things why I don't like this pick in Makai Lemon, and that is right now. The reason there's some areas of his game that I'm not a big fan of in terms of how it fits in Philadelphia. This is not a denigration of Makai Lemon, by the way. This is a denigration of the style of play in Philadelphia. If the idea behind Makai Lemon is to bring him in to replace a guy like A.J. Brown, I think we have too lofty expectations for the young man. I don't believe he's going to come in and replace A.J. Brown on the outside. That is not his game. That is not what he's meant to do. That is not what I believe Philadelphia wants him to do. I think they want him in to be a guy to help them move the chains. If you can get the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands quick, which is what I'm hoping Sean Mannion will help him uncover, this is going to be a really good pick for you. But if you're going to eventually just run a similar offense that you have ran the past 2 to 3 years, which, again, I've had my doubts on in regards to how much change is going to happen in the offensive scheme and design, this is going to be a pick that's going to take a little time to get into the groove of things and take some time to, I guess for lack of a better word, fruition. As competitive as Makai Lemon is, he is a smaller guy. He's 5'11". He's a $192. Okay. Not necessarily the fastest guy on the wide receiver tree. Okay. Like, he's not going to run a 4.4 40 on you. If he gets primarily put in the slot, which is what he did in college, and if that's what they project him to do in Philadelphia, he ain't getting the ball. Like Jalen Hurts, I respect and I love what he has done these past 5 years in Philadelphia. The one thing he doesn't do is throw the ball to wide receiver 3 or throw it to the slot. That is not his game. That is not what he does. And partly that's because he can't see over the giant offensive lineman that we have. So he has to drop back deep, and his footwork's not so great. So when he drops back, it takes him forever to get there, and the release is slow. So it's why he loves the deep ball, by the way. It's why he's really good at the deep ball, because you don't need a big arm for the deep ball. You need technique, and you need a long arching release for the deep ball to get some air and to get some depth on the throw so that it could drop in a breadbasket. That's Jalen Hurts' game. He's not going to throw it across the middle with velocity. Not his thing. And if you don't have arm strength, you got to have really, really great anticipatory throwing skills. And Jalen Hurts hasn't proven that he has that on a consistent basis. And that's been one of the main critiques of him. And it's why a lot of people in Philadelphia want him out at quarterback, even though he just won, or was one of the reasons why we are Lombardi Trophy winners of 2024 and we're in the Super Bowl in 2022. That's when my conversation with Jalen Hurts gets a little silly to me as an Eagles fan, but I'm not going to get into all that. This is about Makai Lemon. Point being is, if he's primarily a slot guy and he's meant to be inserted against zone defenses, will he get the ball? I'm not 100% sure. And in that sense, that's why I believe this pick, as good as he is, as good of a player as I think Makai Lemon is, I don't think you're going to see huge amount of production in year one out of Makai Lemon. And it's not going to be because of Makai Lemon being unable to play on the NFL level. It's just a matter of fit. However you see this offense looking is going to be the reason Makai Lemon looks great as a first-round pick or is going to take some time as a first-round pick. Okay? And what will Sean Mannion do with him? That's really the question for me. We're only going to find that out once they put on pads and once they get out there on the field and run this offense. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk about some of the other players that we have gotten in this draft. Guys like Eli Stowers. We'll talk about the offensive lineman, who I actually like the offensive lineman pickups. And we're going to talk about why I believe they're going to work in Philadelphia or why they won't work in Philadelphia. But before I do that, it is so deep into the episode and I forgot to introduce myself. Let me introduce you to the show. This right here is the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. I am your host, Asif Badi, and like you, I am a Birds fan who talks about the Birds, only the Birds, and nothing but the Philadelphia Eagles. Please do us a favor here. Help us grow this channel organically by shooting this video a thumbs up, commenting your thoughts in the comment section below, and subscribing to the channel. Also, check us out on audio platforms such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star review because in the end, it doesn't cost you a damn thing to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And nowadays, I'll tell you, inflation is one hell of a son of a gun. You don't want to spend no money, hit subscribe. We appreciate your support on the opposite side of the camera and on the opposite side of the airwaves. All right. That was the first round pick in Makai Lemon. Let's talk about Eli Stowers, the tight end out of Vanderbilt, who, again, I like this pick. I think he's a good player. I think he's a really quality tight end, a prospect that is mainly a pass-catching tight end. Now, in the modern NFL, that's kind of what you would want out of a tight end. In that sense, it's going to be a little difficult for me to give him a really, really great draft grade because I like my tight ends to be able to block. And for me, him being a pass catching tight end, while it's not a knock, him being a former quarterback, not a knock. It's all those things why I like him as a pass catcher, because he's really good in zone, really understands defense, understands timing, has a good length in terms of arm radius so that if you throw the ball high, he can get it. The problem is he was a former quarterback. He wasn't previously a tight end, doesn't have great blocking skills. So if you ask him to block for you in the run game, you're not going to get much out of him. You're not going to put him in 13 personnel and ask him to run plays towards his side, for example. It's just not going to happen. So his brilliance comes in the form of pass catching ability. Arguably going to be a replacement for Dallas Goedert. And with this new scheme in Sean Mannion, if it's truly going to be the West Coast Green Bay Packers, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan type of offense, this could be a really, really quality pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. However, if this is going to be a pick where you attempt to run the Sean Mannion scheme and our quarterback, Jalen Hurts, is not comfortable in it, or it looks choppy, and you eventually just go back to the Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts style of power football, mundane, stale type of offense, which, again, worked well enough, by the way, over the past 5 years. I am not sitting here denigrating the offense. I'm saying it is a bore to watch. But if you're going to eventually go back to that style of offense, Eli Stowers is going to be a guy where you look at him and you're going to be like, oh, geez, this is just a souped-up Grant Calcaterra. He's not going to be able to fit in the scheme. And that's the thing that I worry about with Eli Stowers in this offense. If you're going to run the new offensive scheme and change the whole thing up, he could be a home run pick. If not, you're going to have a guy who's not going to make an impact for you at all. Because I don't think he's going to develop the ability to have run blocking skills as a tight end. I don't think he's going to be able to chip defensive ends without getting, bumped himself. I think the size that he has, while it's lanky, he's not a swole dude by any means. He's not built like a tight end. He's 239. He's a smaller guy. So in that sense, I love his ability to read zone. I love his ability for being a pass catcher. I think at the point of attack, at the top of the route, he's got a lot of length. He can high point the football. I think that's a valuable skill, especially for a quarterback like Jalen Hurts. And him being a quarterback helps, or a former quarterback rather helps. But again, in the run game, he's going to be a liability. And I don't think that's going to get better anytime soon. So that's my Eli Stowers take. And again, this is rookie minicamp evaluation. We haven't seen them play at all. Again, he could prove me wrong. All these guys can prove me wrong, by the way. I am not an NFL scout. I am not a guy who is able to sit there and dissect film. This is just my opinion on what I know about football, okay? So that's just my opinion on Eli Stowers. He could prove me wrong, okay? Let's go to the next group of players that I like to talk about here. Let's talk about Markel Bell, the Miami Hurricane, the tackle in the third round that we have decided to pick. And I'm not going to lie, I like these offensive lineman picks that we have, and I'm going to talk about them both together, not necessarily in draft order. I'm going to talk about Markel Bell and Micah Morris in a second. But let's talk about Bell. Again, part of the offensive line for the Miami Hurricanes, who were just in the national championship game. They are really, really it was a good unit in Miami. There were the reasons why they were at that national championship game. The good thing about Markel Bell is that he's durable. He started all games at Miami, and the whole group as a unit, the offensive line grade that they got in Miami as pass blocking, which again, I was surprised by this because they're mainly known to be a run road grading type of offensive lineman group. Their pass blocking grade was 87.4 according to PFF, and they were ranked as the 4th ranked offensive line in ACC by the PFF. Okay, so again, not that I'm a big PFF guy, still, it's a metric that's used. And that's a pretty damn good metric for a unit like the offensive line in Miami. And listen, he's also allowed 0 sacks in his time with Miami this past season. And it's just a really, really nice pick for the Philadelphia Eagles because, one, the size. What is he like? He's like 6'8", 6'9". He's like 312. I mean, the guy's measurables are freakishly long for a tackle. And he is a road grader. So, like, he's going to help you in the run game if he sees snaps at some point in his career in Philadelphia. The only problem with this pick that I see, and it's not necessarily a denigration of the player, it's, again, scheme. They came from a Miami offense that was a power running scheme. If you told me that they picked him in 2024, I would have loved this pick and said this is a home run pick. However, with this pick, you got a little bit of a problem here because it is a zone blocking scheme that we're going to be running in with the Green Bay offense in Philadelphia. We're not going to be running a power run scheme anymore. We're not running Jeff Stoutland's power scheme play anymore. We are running zone blocking schemes, stretches, outside zone. We're trying to get these offensive linemen on the move to get on the edge, bend, and then get Saquon Barkley to hit the hole and hopefully get some more traction in the run game. That was what the goal was with the Sean Mannion scheme. That's what the goal is in those Green Bay, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan type of offense. It's strengthening the running game on outside zones, letting the running back pick a hole, cut up the field, and find some cutback lanes. Markel Bell, one of the things that he doesn't necessarily do is that. He, as talented of a player as he is, getting him to move his feet on the run is a tough ask. Unless he's engaged in a block and becoming a road grader, getting him to pull and getting him to be a leverage guy and getting him on the outside to play the zone stretch scheme and bend defensive ends on the edge, it's a little bit of a tough ask for him, at least early on in his career. And we don't know what Chris Cooper is going to be like as an offensive lineman's coach. If this was Jeff Stoutland, you'd have a whole different ballgame because he's one of the greatest offensive line coaches in NFL history, arguably the greatest, certainly the best in Philadelphia. And now you're replacing that guy with Chris Cooper, who I won't lie to you, I don't know much about. And it shows a lot of faith in this guy, I will say, to draft offensive linemen like him and Micah Morris, who we're going to talk about, like I said, in just a moment. But Chris Cooper has got a big job on his hands, and basically Philadelphia Eagle fans, not necessarily me, but Eagle fans in general, are looking at this Markel Bell pick, and they're saying, hey, you need to turn this guy into a player. Like, that is a must. You're replacing Jeff Stoutland, who we believe, when he gets hands on an offensive lineman that has potential, he makes them into a player. A guy who can contribute. Chris Cooper, can you do the same? And that's the biggest question with this Markel Bell pick. Can he make him into a serviceable player in this scheme? That remains to be the biggest question for Markel Bell. But overall, I like the pick. I think it was a good one. I think at the third round value, you got a really, really good football player. And he came from the Miami Hurricanes, who was, again, a run blocking offensive line. And one of the things Philadelphia needs to strengthen up more, as we saw last season, is the run game. Getting them to get the run game going will help the passing game out. I would much rather have a dominant running game and a mediocre passing offense than vice versa. What good is a passing offense if you can't drain clock? Okay? You got to be able to drain clock, especially with the defense that we have. This kid, Markel Bell, could be a very valuable pick for Philadelphia if it works out well. And now, speaking of value picks, let's talk about Micah Morris. Now, we got him a little bit later in the draft in the 6th round. Like I said, I'm not going in draft order. I'm going by position group. Offensive line, a guard out of Georgia, a Georgia Bulldog. He is a guy, ladies and gentlemen, I love this pick. I think Micah Morris is going to be a damn good pick for us in the 6th round. He fits what we want to do if the idea is to put him as a zone blocking running scheme. Playing guard, he's able to pull, he's able to bend, he's able to go downhill when he's on the move, and he played a zone block scheme in college. So right off the rip, he could be a guy that can make an impact for you. Not necessarily at right guard. Here's my hot take. Not necessarily at right guard. Don't be surprised if you see him get reps at left guard to be the guy who will eventually replace Landon Dickerson. That's my hot take. Don't be surprised if he's the guy that they have chosen to potentially replace Landon Dickerson or get reps in if Landon Dickerson gets hurt. Because Landon Dickerson, as great of a player as he is, has a lot of health history, has a lot of health concerns, and we don't know how he's going to fare with this new scheme. Micah Morris, I know, has the ability to play in this scheme. Micah Morris, guys, was part of a Georgia Bulldog offense that rushed for 182 yards a game, which was 4th in the SEC. He played so much and he was ranked 3rd in sacks allowed. And in the games that they have played with Micah Morris, out of 14 games, the offensive line let the runners clear 170 yards in 9 out of 14 games. Excuse me. Let me say that one more time. That was a little bit of a mouthful and me kind of scrambling, reading my chicken scratch handwriting. 9 of the 14 games that they have played, the offensive line cleared a pathway for them to rush for 170 yards a game. The quarterback on that team rushed for 472 yards, and the running back cleared 947 yards. Why is that significant? Well, because Jalen Hurts is a mobile quarterback, has the ability to run, and you have Saquon Barkley, Tank Bigsby, and Will Shipley as your backfield. Having the ability to clear holes for a guy like Jalen Hurts in this running back room to be able to get yardage and play in the zone blocking scheme and coming from the Georgia, I mean, what Philadelphia Eagles draft is it if you don't have a Georgia Bulldog on the roster, right? So picking him in the 6th round, again, really good value pick. I'm not expecting him to start. I'm expecting him to get reps, though. Potentially, he may get slided in as a starter if Landon Dickerson gets hurt. If Tyler Steen gets hurt, which, knock on wood, I hope neither of them do. But he's not replacing Tyler Steen, everybody. That's a 3rd round pick. They're not looking to waste a 3rd round pick. If Landon Dickerson plays like he did last season, it more likely means that he's going to call it a career at some point. And if that's the case, Micah Morris is the guy to replace him. That's my hot take on Micah Morris. I love the pick. I don't know if there's going to be anything bad about this pick unless we decide to run a power blocking scheme, or if for some strange reason, he somehow is not able to make the roster, but I do believe he's going to make the roster. I think you need the offensive line depth. I do love the value pick. I do love the depth that he brings at guard. I think he can play both sides. And I think Chris Cooper, they want to see what he can do with players like these. So I think they're going to keep both these guys on the roster and let him develop them. Okay, because one thing in Philadelphia that we have never had, one thing for sure, we don't always get the quarterback right. We don't always get running back right. We don't always get these guys right in terms of the offensive skill players or defensive backs or whatnot. No. We always get offensive line right. We generally get offensive linemen correct. We have not, in all my years as a Philadelphia Eagle fan, I've been watching since 2007. I can't remember a time we've had a mediocre offensive line. We've always had good offensive linemen. Part of that is because of Jeff Stoutland, but part of that's philosophy. Jeff Lurie, since taking over the team, has never had a bad offensive line. I'm going to trust their process in evaluating offensive linemen, no matter who the offensive line coach is. So I think this is a really, really good player that they got in the 6th round. And I think Markel Bell is a good player that they got in the 3rd round. All right, let's go to some of these later round picks here, okay? Now, I'm not going to go too crazy over some of these guys, okay? This is going to be a really, really quick analysis of some of these players because I think this is more just like depth pieces, chance picks, nothing that is really going to be making the roster per se. But let's talk about the South Dakota State quarterback, Cole Paxton, who people seem to really, really like. The measurables that he has, what is he, 6'2", 230. The guy can move. He's really mobile, big arm. Again, I am not a big fan of South Dakota quarterbacks. I am not a big fan of any time we pick a quarterback in the 6th round because, quite frankly, outside of Tanner McKee, who the only reason I knew about was because my boy Justin, big football brain, sought him out when the Indianapolis Colts at the time were drafting in the top 5 and they chose Anthony Richardson. He wanted him to pick Tanner McKee. I don't blame him for that. I think Tanner McKee's a really good player, and he's proven to be a good player in the National Football League with the limited start time that he has gotten. But neither here nor there. I'm digressing. Point being is Cole Paxton is a quarterback out of South Dakota State. I said North Dakota State. South Dakota State. Okay. All he is a contingency. He's a contingency if they decide to trade Tanner McKee, which I don't believe they will, unless somebody offers a 2nd or a 1st round pick. And I don't think this is a pick that Sean Mannion made. I don't think this is a pick that Nick Sirianni made. I think this is just a pick that Philadelphia Eagles every year take a quarterback at some point in the draft because they want to be a quarterback factory. And they do this every single year. They took Kyle McCord last year. They're taking Cole Paxton this year. They always try to find a quarterback, and they just take it for the sake of taking it and just to say, hey, we got a quarterback in the room. We always took a quarterback in the draft. This is because they care about perception, okay? You always take a quarterback in every single draft. I don't care if you have Tom Brady on the roster. I don't care if you have Peyton Manning. I don't care who you have on the roster. Every team takes a quarterback, or should take a quarterback on the roster. That's just smart business. I think it's just better to do that and parting ways with the guy potentially versus missing out on somebody who you think has even a speck of potential in being a starter in the NFL. It's too important of a position not to take. So taking this guy, I think, is fine. Again, I don't love the fact that he's from South Dakota State. And I know what people are going to say. Well, Carson Wentz was from South Dakota State. Yeah, I don't give a crap either. I didn't think he was that good when he came out of college either. And ultimately, he proved me right. He did have the 1 year in Philadelphia that helped us lead to a Super Bowl. That's excellent, and I appreciated him of that. But quite frankly, I never thought Carson Wentz was a good quarterback, and he hasn't proven to be a good quarterback in the NFL. And people are going to sit there and tell you he's better than Jalen Hurts. That's bullshit, okay? Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than Carson Wentz. He proved it to you last season, and you're going to say, hey, what if Carson Wentz had the weapons that he had in Philadelphia now that Jalen Hurts has? Well, I saw him in Minnesota, and he looked like butt cheeks, okay? So Carson Wentz, with all due respect to him, I hope he continues to fulfill his NFL dream. He has no business in Philadelphia, and he is not a good quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, nor in any capacity is he a good quarterback, okay? He's got physical traits, just like this kid. Got physical traits. Do I know if he can read a defense? No. Do I believe he's going to sit there and get starting quality reps? No. Do I even think he's going to make the roster? I don't believe so. They just took him for the sake of taking him. That's what this Cole Paxton pick is. So God bless him. Bless you, my good sir. I really wish no ill will upon you. I do hope you make the roster. And if you don't make the Philadelphia Eagles roster, I do hope you make a roster in the NFL and have a really, really great career. People compare him to Taysom Hill. People compare him, his measurables to that sort of ilk, and being a guy that could be in short yardage situations, which at that point, you might as well have taken a running back. You might as well have taken another position at that point, because that is quite frankly a useless reason to take a quarterback for short yardage situations and running gadget plays. That's not what you do. You take quarterbacks because you believe they can lead your offense, they can lead your team to victory, and that's what you take a quarterback for. Cole Paxton, with all due respect to him, is not that kind of quarterback. So forgive me, not really interested in that pick. Cole Wisniewski, seventh round pick out of Texas Tech, the safety. I like the pick. Okay, I don't believe he's going to be a starting safety for us by any means. He's not going to be the replacement for Reed Blankenship. Okay, you're not going to have the dynamic white duo in the backfield once again of the defensive back room with Cooper DeJean and him. The thing I like about him, he gets downhill, sure tackler. Really good technique when he gets his hands wrapped up on you. However, I am not sure he has the ability to play NFL coverage in terms of being able to cover ground. I think he has the capacity to understand coverage and understand positioning, but to be able to close in on range and to be able to close gaps when playing safety, I don't know if he has that ability. I didn't see it in college for the very little tape that I saw on him, and I'm listening to what other people talk about him. To me, this seems more like a special teamer. This seems to be more like a pick that you have not only as safety depth, but more as a starting gunner on special teams, because we did trade Sidney Brown away to the Atlanta Falcons, and we are going to need a gunner. We're keeping Keely Ringo most likely, but this guy, I think, since he has the ability to go downhill, since he has the ability to tackle very, very well, and isn't a knuckleheaded type of player, I think he'd be perfect as a special teamer for the Philadelphia Eagles. And don't be surprised if he's a starting gunner on the opposite side of Keely Ringo, because I think he has that kind of ability, and I think that's why Philadelphia drafted him. And being from Texas Tech, again, big football school, big football program. I think we've talked about this in episodes past, how Howie Roseman likes to draft players who come from big programs, because you understand, big moments, and you understand big football towns and stuff like that. You're not going to be afraid of the moment. I don't think this kid's afraid of the moment. I don't think this kid is necessarily going to be shy in the spotlight per se. Not that any of these guys are, but again, you're not going to see him starting at safety for the Philadelphia Eagles. And if he does, it'll be a pleasant surprise. Okay. And if he does start, I hope it's out of, not necessarily out of necessity, but I hope it's because he can actually play. I just don't know if he has the ability to do that on a consistent basis. So that's my thought on Cole Wisniewski. People like him. I do like the player. I don't know if he's going to do much for Philadelphia unless he's a starting special teamer, which I believe he will be. And in that sense, I think he's a valuable pick at 7th round. Okay. And again, I'm not going through every single draft pick, but this is the final one that we are going to talk about today. Forgive me if I pronounce the name wrong. Uar Bernard, the defensive tackle out of the International Players Pathway Program from Nigeria, the Nigerian Nightmare. Listen, I don't know a damn thing about this guy. I don't. Although I know his story is incredible. Yeah, he used to have the reason. Okay, let me put it to you. Let me give you the measurables, and then I'll talk about the story that I heard about this guy. Okay, this dude is a defensive tackle, again, from the International Player Pathway Program that they have in the NFL. So I don't know if there's even tape on him playing football. I don't even think he's played a down of football. Okay. He's 6'5", 306 pounds, runs a 4.6 40-yard dash, a 39-inch vertical, a broad jump of 10 feet, 10 inches, and benches 31 reps at 225 pounds. Those measurables. And this is where I have a problem with Eagle fans. This is where I have a problem with the internet, okay? As sick and as insane as those measurables are for a guy who hasn't played a down in the NFL, the thing that people compared those measurables to, I shouldn't say a thing, he's a human being, is Hall of Fame player Myles Garrett. Let me tell you something, guys. Anybody who compares this dude to Myles Garrett needs to go screw themselves. What on earth are you trying to do to this young man? This young man has asked nothing, has asked for nothing but good vibes, and you guys are throwing the comparisons of Myles Garrett at him. Listen, the measurables are comparable. I understand that. But damn it, let the boy play. Let the guy play in the NFL for a down. We're seeing him run drills in practice, and people are excited about him because he is an athletic freak, okay? But you know what? It's a little bit different to engage on a block. It's a little bit different to run when someone's trying to move you against your will. It's a little bit different to understand offensive blocking schemes and trying to be able to hit the hole and make a play in the backfield. Holding your assignment. Those are things that you have not been able to see with this young man. I hope, and I do believe he's going to make the roster because I do believe they love the potential that he has. And I like the potential that the guy has. Those measurables you don't just find growing out on trees, okay? But let the man play. This is a pick for Clint Hurt. This is a pick that eventually the eventual defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, Clint Hurt, is going to take precedent here within the next year or two. When Vic Fangio retires, this is going to be a project for him. That's why they picked him. And I hope he plays really well. I hope he comes in and gives immediate impact for us. That'd be amazing. What an incredible story it would be. And the reason, again, speaking of incredible stories, this will be the last little bit about this guy. When he got drafted, one of the things he said that he's able to run so fast, the way he's able to run is because he used to have to run to hunt for his own food. Can you imagine that? This guy went from not playing a down in the NFL, running to hunt for a meal, and now he's going to be running after quarterbacks and running backs in the National Football League for the Philadelphia Eagles. That is one hell of a turnaround, one hell of a story for the international players pathway pick out of Nigeria, Uar Bernard, who plays defensive tackle and will hopefully play defensive tackle for a long time in Philadelphia. I really hope this is one of the draft picks that I truly, truly believe, even if he doesn't play well in Philadelphia, they're going to keep him. Like, you just have to keep this guy on the roster. I think it's too great of a story. I think the potential is too there. And quite frankly, with Clint Hurt as your future defensive coordinator and your current defensive line coach, you got to give him something to work with here. And I think this guy has all the makings to be a really good player or a serviceable player in Philadelphia because he has a good head on his shoulders. And that's the other thing about this draft class that I'm going to make this overarching point about. These past few years, Howie Roseman has drafted guys who, again, I have kind of made jokes about this with him for. We really, really like this guy. He has really good character, and he has really, really good football pedigree, and we really, really enjoy him in the building. We think he's a good guy. All that stuff. All those things seem to take precedent, though. It seems to build a really good culture in the locker room when everybody's got a good head on their shoulders. They're not bad character guys. They're willing to work hard. They're willing to be coached hard. You see it on the defensive side of the ball. So, all of these things accumulating to be building a culture in Philadelphia, it's the one thing you give Howie credit for. Not only the great contracts, not only drafting good players, but drafting players with good heads on their shoulders. And lastly, speaking of good heads on their shoulders, and this, I know I keep saying this is the last, but this is truly the last bit. You can't talk about the NFL draft for the Philadelphia Eagles without mentioning Jonathan Greenard. We traded 2 third-round picks to bring this guy from Minnesota to Philadelphia, and we signed him to a 4-year, $100 million contract. And the way they designed the contract, I think the cap hit for the guy is going to be like $6 million. Like it's virtually nothing for a player like Jonathan Greenard, who I think is a quality NFL pass rusher. 6-year pro. Going into year 7, I think he's had 3 years where he has really, really good pass rushing season and 3 years where he's been not so great. But when you hear the guy speak, when you hear him in interviews, when you hear just the way he views the NFL game, I think he's just a really, really good quality leader, quality character guy, has pedigree in the NFL, has high levels of success, and quite frankly, an 8 to 12 sack type of guy. Okay. And that's something that you every year have been looking for. Now, we had that with Jalen Phillips last year, and we saw how well the Philadelphia Eagles defense looked. Jonathan Greenard provided that same sort of level, if not a little bit less. But quite frankly, with the additional depth that you got in this defensive lineman room, and with the other players that we seem to be bringing back in terms of, Jalex Hunt, Nolan Smith, you bringing in Jonathan Greenard now, you have Ty Robinson, you have Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Moro Jomo, Uar Bernard. Again, there's other players on the roster that I'm sure they're going to be adding as the weeks go on. You look at the defense and you're saying, hey, this is going to be one of the bright spots in Philadelphia. And again, people are projecting this to be a top 5 defensive unit. I don't know if I'm going to go that high, but I'll be damned if this isn't a top 7, top 10 type of unit. Okay. And if that's the case, Philadelphia, I thought they were going to win 9 games off the rip. I might have to bump that up to like 10, 11 wins. If you're going to show me and you're going to tell me that this is going to be a top 10 unit on defense, you're winning yourselves 9 ball games minimum with your defense. So that's really who we are as the Philadelphia Eagles. So overall, if I had to put a grade on this, I'll give it a B- on terms of drafting. I'll give them a B- there. I will not give it an A because we don't know how these guys are going to play. And that wasn't meant to be a rhyme, okay? It just ended up happening to be that way, okay? So a B- as a draft grade. I really like what they did. I like the depth pieces that they tried to go after. It only works, though, if they're truly going to commit to this new offensive scheme and Jalen Hurts is able to buy in. All of it goes to whack. All of it goes to crap if the quarterback and head coach are not able to buy into this scheme. Okay? And we'll talk about other reasons why this hiring of Sean Mannion is pretty significant in another episode at another time. But this was a long-winded episode honoring rookie minicamp because, quite frankly, I haven't been able to talk about the draft due to some other personal outside of football commitments. But regardless, I like the draft. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, what you feel about this draft. Do you think that we have studs in the waiting? Because I'm not, again, if we're buying into the scheme, we might. If we're not going to buy into the scheme, we've got a little bit of a problem on our hands. So, neither here nor there. Let me know what you think about these draft picks. Let me know who your favorite draft pick was. And we'll see you back here next time for the next episode of the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. Hey. Thank you so much for watching the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. If you want to continue to support the channel, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. Also, check us out on Instagram and TikTok at Riding the Bench Eagles Pod. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it, we're on there. Thank you so much for listening, and please join us next time here at the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast.